Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you are doing well. I'm feeling great. I'm recording this post eclipse. This last one really did some things. It was the most potent shift I've ever felt from an eclipse energy. Like I always feel this, but I feel like this was like a big one for really transforming people's lives. So I'm just curious to hear, and I already am hearing just like in the Channel Collective membership and with friends and stuff. I just feel like so many people have completed big contracts, are opening up their next level. New things are dropping in. Like it's really exciting and I think new territory for a lot of people. So I love this and I love witnessing it. I love witnessing the transformation and the changes. And I've been going through some of my own as well, which I'm really excited about. I wanted to, before I get too off topic here, I really wanted to share this, something I've been thinking about, just another kind of, I don't know, mindset tip. I don't really like that term. There's something wrong with it. I just don't really like that term, like a mindset tip, but I guess what it is. Kind of, so just something what the guides have been telling me regarding manifestation, just different angles, different ways of viewing it, which is always worth sharing because different things click for different people when it comes to really understanding how we can move energy and shift energy. And the hardest part about manifestation is the belief part. It's about shifting your subconscious beliefs and believing that you have what you want and that it's possible is the first step. We've talked about this before on the podcast about why is it more difficult for certain people to manifest body changes, and often a big one is because it's harder for people to claim the belief that their body can change quite rapidly, where often it's easier for people to believe that other areas of their life can shift dramatically overnight. And I just want to tell you, in case you need any evidence, because this is going to be helpful whenever you're manifesting something, whenever you want something to shift in your life, give your brain evidence. I do this every time I want to manifest something. Like if I'm being honest with myself and I know there's a piece of me that is unsure if that's even possible, I will go find evidence for myself of people where this has occurred. The internet is an abundant place of testimonials, anecdotes, which have always been the most helpful for me in my own journey with my health, with my business, everything. I just love hearing anecdotes because it expands your perception of what is possible, because it's like people are experiencing this. And for me, with activating a lot of miracles and big shifts in my life, it's helped me to see, whoa, that actually has happened for other people. Like if other people can spontaneously heal and have a miracle, then why not me? That shifts something in our brains where we can actually believe it. Whenever I want to just give my brain some more evidence and just flood it with the knowing, hey, this can happen for me, I will head to the internet or ask people I know and just be like, look, if this happened for, this person, it's possible. And that's really all I need to unlock. And I will tell you that there's not a single part of my life that I haven't experienced drastically transform in like a second, in a moment, one opportunity, one person. Overnight, I wake up and like something is healed, something is completely gone. Like physical shifts, physical changes where it makes literally no sense how that shifted or changed. I've had it happen. So remember that we are much more malleable than we might think, and just notice where we're living in limitations of what's possible. But here's the thing that they've just been telling me, which is just a different angle of this. They've just been telling me, and you're gonna be like, this is so obvious, but I don't know why this has been landing for me so deeply. Nothing is permanent and everything is temporary. And if I see every single thing as temporary, like everything around me is temporary, not only has that unlocked for me just a different angle of non-attachment, which is very helpful. Like everything is temporary. So I'll just stop there. Everything is temporary. That allows me to be in such deeper gratitude and appreciation for the present moment and what's happening right now. Like that is really, really beautiful. Everything is temporary. And I'm not going to be this version of me tomorrow. I'm not going to be this version of me next year. My friends and I will talk about this a lot. I'm like, you guys, like next year, we're not going to be where we're at right now. Like, look at what we have available to us right now, right here. Like, this is incredible. Like, this stage of our lives, like, it's easy to, think the grass is always greener. I can't wait until this happens or this changes. But there's always going to be a point where, you look back and you're like, wow, when I was that age, when I was at that point in my life, I wish I had taken more advantage of my liberties then, or, what I had access to, whatever it is. So everything is temporary. Like, everything is always shifting and changing. And it's allowed me to just be in such deeper appreciation for the present moment and what I have available to me right now. But everything is temporary. Of like, I'm never limited or constricted by my current conditions. And a big thing that was something for me to shift, like that when I was younger, kept me really stuck manifesting wise, was I just had this belief that, like, if something happened, I was stuck in it. And a lot of that for me personally came from, it came from like programming of things I heard from people around me. I just, like, growing up kind of believing that, like, it is what it is. And I think a lot of us have that, but also with my body, because I felt like how hard I worked or how hard I tried and my body just wasn't healing. And so I started to create this belief at the time that, like, shit, if I have a health issue, I'm just stuck with it. And so much of that, like, for me, because I had chronic illness and just having that label, you're told, like, this is a lifelong thing, and it's not, it doesn't have to be. But when I believed that, then I was like, I started to become fearful of things happening in my life. And I didn't really realize how that was bleeding over into other areas of my life, where I just started to let that belief permeate other areas. In terms of whenever anything would happen, I would just think, like, this is the way it is. Like, and even just the way I was reacting to certain things, like if something didn't go the way that I wanted it to go, I would just feel like, oh my God, I'm stuck in this. Like, this didn't work out and I'm screwed and nothing ever is going to work out for me again. Which, when I say that, it sounds ridiculous, and I know that, but when I really looked back on the way I was thinking, when I was thinking about how I was thinking at the time, I was like, oh shit, there's a piece of me that kind of believes that. Like, and so I'd get scared that something was going to happen that then couldn't get fixed. And so where this idea, this belief, this knowing, this whatever, this statement, everything is temporary, really just unlocked a lot for me, and has really helped, just like manifesting wise, is for me to understand, like, everything is transient. And so if I'm going through something that isn't super comfortable or I'm not really enjoying, it's going to shift and change. Like, this is healing every day. This is changing every day. This is growing every day, because it can be really easy to get stuck in what's happening today and think this is just how it is. And I see this a lot for people with money. And I was talking to some friends about it with their business, and I'm like, you're assuming that, like, what's happening right now financially is what's going to happen next month, but it's like, everything is temporary. And so that means this is just a phase. So I'll say, I think one of the things that trips people up in entrepreneurship, it can be when the income isn't as consistent as maybe they were used to. And even if people are making the same yearly income as before, people get really tripped up over the idea of, like, maybe nothing comes in for 3 months, then all of a sudden, you get a huge cash injection. And so big picture, it evens out when you look at the overall year. But a lot of people don't like that. Personally, I love it, but just saying what I see. A lot of people don't like that. And having that few months where nothing's coming in, they let that, like, really trip them up. And they kind of can spiral and feel like, I'm having a bad month. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you're not having a bad month. It's just part of the energy flow. Right. And I'm like, well, why does this matter to you when you know that you're going to make, 30K, 40K, 50K, whatever it is, in 3 months? Like, you're going to get a big cash injection. And like, people will tell me, like, I don't know. It just, like, really bothers me. And when you're in the knowing that everything is temporary, because it is, like, we're always changing and shifting. Like, sorry. This is why people have their feelings let down. You guys don't listen to me for my, my subtlety or my indirectness. I'm just going to tell you, like, this is why people always get let down. They set themselves up to feel let down because they want everything to be permanent. And that's just, like, literally not how it goes. Nothing is. Like, we're always growing, shifting, changing. And that's just how it is. Relationships aren't permanent. Even if you're going to be in a relationship for the rest of your life, that relationship is not going to be the same as it is today. That's not saying it's going to get worse, but it could probably get a lot better. It could be equally as great, but just shift and transform and look a little bit different and have a different energy to it. Like things are always shifting and changing. Nothing is permanent. Like everything is temporary. And when you really let yourself lean into that, like think about that and all the repercussions of that, I think it takes a lot of the pressure off of when you're in the moment and feeling like things aren't really working out or feeling like things are not where you want them to be at. It's like, this is literally just temporary and tomorrow it's going to be better. And going back to, I just look back at my younger self and I think for a while I really felt like, oh my gosh, I feel like this today. I'm going to feel like this forever. Because that was my experience with my body. That was my experience with my mental health issues, things like that. And now it's like something will happen and I don't have a reaction to it because I'm like, everything's temporary. So it's like, if I don't like that, it's going to go away tomorrow. And I think a lot of the spirals come from when we think that this happened and so I'm stuck in it and I'm going to have to deal with it and it's going to be a problem, which then energizes more of that timeline versus everything's temporary. Like this is going to go away tomorrow. No big deal. No big deal. Right. And so I think especially with things that feel more difficult to change, I mean, it could be your financial situation. It could be something with your health or with your body, with your appearance. Like everything is temporary. And I'm in the transition every day. Like this is temporary and I'm lining up with what I really desire. It could also be if you're single, right? And you're really wanting to find your person and you're like, maybe you've created this belief that I'm just the perpetually single person. I'm always lonely. Dating is hard for me. It's like, just because you had a dry spell or, a rough patch, or like it's not clicking right now, you can decide that that's just who you are and you always have bad luck and like that's a permanent thing. And then that's the reality you're creating. Or you can decide everything's temporary. And when you look at people who do manifest what they want and you look at the actual trajectory, it wasn't that everything was perfect the whole way through. People who, whatever you think is successful. So people who are in a quote successful relationship or in a successful business, or their health is super aligned, optimized, whatever the term is. Like when you look at people who have that and you look at their trajectory, it wasn't that there wasn't anything there that, maybe wasn't optimal along the way, but it was that they didn't perceive that as a permanent thing. It was just a temporary thing. It's like, I don't know why, whatever. My guides are bringing this up. It's like, if you get a zit, it's like, okay, it's going to go away, like, and it's one type of person that's like energizing it and be like, oh my God, like feeling like it's a permanent thing, even though it's not. And then like, what do you create more of? Versus like, it's going to go away and it's no big deal. And then it just passes and you don't deal with it again. So play with that. Everything is temporary. And if you're moving through something that's not feeling really good, remind yourself that like everything is temporary. This is temporary. And for me, when I align with that, I can actually start to just like move the timeline. So that temporary bit is very temporary and shorter because I just accept it. It's like, oh, it's just temporary. Okay. And I have found, okay, this is really random, but they're telling me to say this. I had an allergic reaction to something. I've never had a full body allergic reaction to something. It was this supplement I took. I've never had something like this before. Immediately, my whole body started getting hot and I immediately just swelled up and broke out in this huge, itchy, painful rash all over my body, like all over my body. I was like, what is this? And I was like getting really hot and I could feel myself kind of like, oh my God, shit. And my brain started to go to, oh my God, is my throat going to close up? Like I just started to get really nervous as I was by myself. And then, my inner dialogue, whoever that was, my higher self, my guides, whatever, it doesn't matter. The other part of me, my soul was like, it's just temporary. It's going to go away. And I started to just anchor into that. Like I have a full body, like rash, hives, whatever. This is going to go in the next 10 minutes. It's just temporary. Because there's a piece of me that's like, I immediately was spiraling into, oh my God, is this going to last all day? Am I going to have to like cancel the things I have today? Is this going to turn into something else? Am I going to have to go to the ER? Like, I'm just like, and I immediately was like, no, it's just temporary. It's going to go away. And so I was like, okay, I know it's going to go away. So I'm just going to move on with my day. And I just moved on with my day and it was gone within the next like 10 minutes. I actually was going to go to the store to get some antihistamine and it went away. Like actually by the time I got to the store. And I was like, that was because I just decided it was temporary. And look, it left. And I think even just moments like that of that where how crazy is that the body can change so quickly? Like literally within seconds of me taking the supplement, my whole body starts to shift. Like I'm completely swollen. I have a rash everywhere. Like I looked like a different person. And then when it went away really fast. And I once again looked like a different person. And it's like, wow, transformation is always happening. Everything is temporary. And maybe that scares you in some ways. For me, that is liberating because it's like, great, everything's temporary. That means things can only get better. Onward and upward. So once again, stuff that we already know, but I think hearing it in a different way with different context at a different time, at least for me, always unlocks something different. And that has been really helpful for me and something my guide just have kept reminding me of. I'm like, yeah, everything's temporary. So like, I'm not going to keep spending time focusing on the things that I want to be temporary. I'm just going to start focusing on like the things I do like, because if it's temporary and it's going to go away, I'm not going to waste my energy on it. See what I'm saying there? So what do you waste your energy on? Anyway, this is getting totally derailed. This is the thing. I try to, in the first like minute of the show, say what we're going to talk about for the day, because that's like good practice. But I really hate knowing what I'm going to talk about for the day because it's very not the flow of a channel at all. So I don't know what we're going to talk about today, and I just got to lean into it. I think I have just, there's layers of this, but I'm just like anything that's feeling hard. I'm just a no thank you to. Like it's got to feel like ease. And I don't mean like anything that's feeling hard. Like trust me, I'm probably too comfortable with like challenges that expand me, like facing my ego, doing my shadow work, like that kind of hard I can do. Like facing the tough shit I can do. But what I mean is like things in my life that just feel like an ordeal. It feels like, why are there so many steps? Why has this become overcomplicated? Like, why do we need to do it all? Why are we adding all this extra shit? Like, why is it? It's just like feeling like too many damn steps. Like, I don't have time for it. I don't want to do it. I'm becoming allergic to it. Like, it's like, don't forget to do this. And then 500 things here. And I just like can't. I just got to make it as easy as possible. So I don't know if anyone else is feeling that way, but I think that's a big energy coming through because like our vibrations want to be shared so clearly, potently, effectively, that all of this extra stuff, my guides keep telling me, it's a very humbling moment. Like, I'm like asking all these questions. I'm like in my Akashic records asking all these questions. They're like, literally stop. This is all distractions. This is all distractions. None of this matters. This is all extra. Like, stop it. Like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you desire? What's making you feel good? And just focus on that. And everything else needs to just fall to the wayside. We have gotten so used to clutter. It is the distraction mechanism. And as a lot of us step into this rebirth, this new chapter, the key is to start to recognize where we have been really distracted. And that's going to come to the forefront because, and that could be, where things in our reality, like social media or emails or like, I don't know, things going on in your neighborhood or whatever are just distracting you. It's also like where you're keeping yourself distracted because you don't want to look at what's right in front of you. And you can run, but you can't hide. You can run, but you can't hide. Okay, so a couple things. We are just going places here. So one of the things that has really happened, like changed through the last eclipse for me personally, Christina, has been a couple things. I really like, okay, one, which I'm not going to spend that much time on. If you guys listen to my New Birthday, New Me podcast episode, you know what I'm talking about. But I feel like for a while, it was like I was really like I haven't fully processed this, but like for a while it was really like both of those birth charts and both of the energies of like both of those were really potent, and I was kind of integrating, connecting with both, and it just it felt like something shifted, like something really completed regarding my first birth date, birth chart. Something really completed, and I feel like I'm way more in the new energy now. Like it's just really weird, and it's not like the old one is gone. I just feel like before maybe I was like 75% in Aries and like 25% a Cancer, and like it kind of just changed into like now I feel like I'm like 30% in Aries and 70% a Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. Like I don't know, something changed, and also part of that was because it's like I'm a lot more in that other chart now. That also opened something up for me, like very different, just channeling wise. So, I don't know. There's just feelings going on. Anyway, long story short, I've already kind of implemented this places, but this is the first podcast I'm recording about it. Anyway, so like my channeling kind of like changed a bit, and this is something I was doing before, but it wasn't like the main way I was going about it. Like if we talk about, I'll consciously channel where I'm, just kind of sharing what the guides are saying, what I'm seeing, all of that. But I'm still very much in the driver's seat. And then there's when I go into trance. So I basically go into a trance, they come in, speak through the vessel. I don't know where I'm at. I'm up somewhere else, and I'm getting a lot of the information like vibrationally, and it looks like I'm looking at the old like Windows screensaver with the colors. It's like that kind of energy. So there's that. But I was really struggling with like something that I really want to find an effective way to bring forward, which thankfully I've gotten a lot of clarity around this, is just like how can I give people a peek into my experience with the guides and what's going on? Like, what is that feeling like for me? What is my experience like? And really like, there's a lot of conversations I have with my guides. And remember, like, so I perceive my guides like holograms around me. Like when I'm like they're all around me in my room. Like I see them like people. Okay. And so when I'm having a conversation, it's like a very much like as if I'm having a conversation back and forth with a person. Or same when I have a client and their guides come in and they're like basically holograms sitting next to me. And so I'm like, it's like I'm talking to a person. I'm like, I wish I could like film this like a movie, And I wish people could see inside of that. And I think the other thing I've been running into, it's like when I go into trance, I want to be able to have kind of like more of a back and forth because the guides it just feels better. The guides have a lot more to say, and it's hard when I'm like fully in the trance. So anyway, kind of what has been happening, and this has a lot to do with like a lot of the DNA shifts I talked about last year and like how my vessel has changed, and has basically just been, and I knew this was coming, it just wasn't like anchored in, but through the eclipse fully anchored in, it was basically now what will happen is I will pop out, and I'm basically like I know this is going to sound freaking insane, but what else is new here? I will basically pop out to where like, it's like I'm looking, it's like I could see myself like I'm seeing the other guy. So like I'm kind of popping out, but I can still access my consciousness, and then the frequency of the guide will come in and use the vessel and talk through me, but then the guide can be talking to my consciousness and I can still be asking questions. So it's almost like when how can I describe this better? I just want to be really clear. I think this is interesting, but also just so you know, because it's going to change. And I like it because I can be more interactive and I can read things, and it's a lot more like integrated. When I'm consciously channeling, think of me as person A, Christina, person A, and she's looking at all the spirit guides. They usually stand in a half circle around me, and I'm looking at all of them, and I'm listening to them, and I'm repeating what they're saying, or I'm answering, they might say something and then person A, Christina, the conscious channel, is expressing that. And that could look like one of the spirit guides asking me a question or saying something, and then person A, Christina, is expressing that. So now what can happen? I mean, this could happen before. It just wasn't fully, there were basically a lot of activations that had to happen. I went through some intense energy work for this, to like actually get ingrained and to like download the consciousness, whatever. You don't really care. Now what can happen is person A in the vessel could be goddess Isis. That's what we just did. I just did the embodied goddess call, or that was Sophia came through. We just did this. But anyway, so let's say goddess Isis comes in, and now she's person A. And goddess Isis, as person A, is looking around at this half circle of the guides. One of those is Christina's consciousness. So basically, Christina's consciousness can ask person A the question, and then Isis can like be like, okay, Christina's asking this. I know this is my you might be like, what the hell? We're gonna do it. I'm probably gonna mostly do it this way now because it's just a lot easier, a lot more fun. So anyway, I think that was a perfect example for me in my own life of like knowing that change was going to happen, but it just wasn't like time. And then it became time because it was the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And here we are, rebirthed, fresh, anew, and I think, so something that's interesting that I kind of wanted to connect it with is, so, this calls into question as I'm doing this, as I'm moving through that process, it's kind of like, how interesting is that like basically a different frequency can come through and use the vessel. Like this whole channeling thing, really pushes the boundaries of like, I don't know, a lot of things I learned as a psychology major, and just like different personality, things like that. It's like, where is the line here? And the line in my mind is control over it. And like, it's really, how does this affect this person's life? And like, for me, I'm in complete control and choosing the frequency, and I know the frequency, and it's like completely grounded and connected. It's a very different energy. I was watching the new on Netflix, like the Queen Charlotte series. That's like a spinoff of Bridgerton, which I just am obsessed with. I love Bridgerton. I probably watched it at least 15 times, both seasons. So anyway, I've been watching the Queen Charlotte one, which is excellent. I really love. And in it, and I know a lot of like historically, a lot of this is like muddied, but like, how much is accurate, whatever. Basically, like that King George was struggling with mental illness, and a lot of it, that brought up a lot. I think like I just feel really, really grateful that I'm in this incarnation now. And I think, a lot of us, like, I know that things might not be perfect, but there is more space for us to fully express ourselves than ever before. And I understand there are limitations to that, for different people and different experiences. But overall, like, think about something like the witch wound, and all of us, that there are spirituality podcasts, and I know some people might feel like, well, it's still not widely accepted. And it's like, okay, but like, there were times when we would be not able to do this. We would be put to death for this. And that's a big reason why, we have a lot of those fears deep within of expressing ourselves, of sharing these parts of ourselves, because we have that past life memory. We have that soul memory of, okay, when I expressed myself here, in whatever way, whether that was like related to your spirituality or really anything, that we got punished for it. And we can have that memory, and I was just thinking a lot about like, back then, there were a lot of things that were taboo and you just didn't do it, like in that society. But one of the things they really explore in that series is, the king having that, they say he's mad, like, I'm a madman. That's like the phrase they use, British. And they're exploring like how that was really like taboo and basically would have made him, I don't know what the term is, like, couldn't, if people found out, he couldn't be king anymore and all of that. Like, it was a very taboo thing, mental illness. And I know for myself, when I was struggling a lot with my anxiety and depression and I had different diagnoses, I felt this liberation of being able to just like talk about that and express that, and I think about like, for people who really were struggling, like and there are still many people in this situation of like they're struggling and they're not able to get the help that they need or get the answers that they want, or that they really need, because they would be shamed or punished or put down or whatever it is, cast out. There'd be serious repercussions for even like admitting that they struggle with that, and I know for me, I'm just really grateful. Like, I in this incarnation like was able to ask for help, was able to say, I am, at the time, I was severely depressed and I'm having suicidal thoughts, and like or my anxiety or my panic attacks, like things that I was able to go ask for help about. And I wasn't met with open arms from everyone, but all in all, I was able to get the help that I needed, and that took different forms. And I just think I'm grateful for that. And the other thing that as I'm watching this depiction in this show, and it's like I'm watching this right now and it's like very timely, as I'm already thinking about like, this is wild, like what I do, like I never would have thought I'd be doing whatever I'm doing now. Like the fact that my daily life is like talking to non-physical beings, like this is what I primarily do as my career in my personal life. Like the veil is thin. And I look at some of the depictions like of King George in the show, and just like in like scary movies and things, and I'm like, this is different. There are certain ways in which this isn't that different than what I'm experiencing. The only thing is I have context and I'm not afraid of it. Like in certain ways, like I'm in control of it, or I have context where I know what it is. So I'm not like freaking out. It's like in scary movies, or I think about like in Harry Potter, Chamber of Secrets, and he's like hearing the basilisk talk and he's like, oh my God, am I crazy? I'm hearing voices. And it's like so funny because I'm like, you guys are at Hogwarts and you're freaking out about hearing a voice. And they make some comment like, that's not normal. And I'm like, here's the thing. Most people hear voices. They just like, it sounds like their own. And I'm like, I hear voices all the time. The difference is like, I know who it is. Like, I know who it is and I'm in control of it. I have like, it's not just popping in when I don't want to hear it. I open it and I close it. Like I have total control over it. And it's not a scary thing. It's just like, it's actually being fully aware of the non-physical realm, which is still here. It's like actually being able to see what other people can't see. So my senses aren't as dulled. And that's the thing. You got to realize, like when we first got on this planet, everybody was psychically open. Everybody was seeing like not just the 3D stuff, but they were seeing the different levels of density. We were seeing the different layers. People were talking to their spirit guides, like we're picking up on different things like those voices. How come it's okay for somebody to say, I was talking to God, God was talking to me, I heard it as a loud man? How come that's okay for some people to say? And it's apparently not okay for other people to hear a man that's a voice and suddenly they're crazy. And I think a lot of that has to do with, what is the voice saying, right? Because I mean, this is the thing. It's like when internet chats start opening up, and it's like, you got to be careful who you're chatting with. You got to be careful who you're chatting with. It's the internet. Anyone could be on there. Anyone could be catfishing you. It's the same thing with your intuitive gifts. Like, it just is what it is. Like, the same thing. I think about this, like, people are like, get all scared about opening up their psychic sense. Who am I going to talk to? And I'm like, I don't know who you're going on that Hinge date with, because they could be catfishing you. It's literally no different. It's just a different realm. So it's like knowing who you're communicating with, and like, if it's a being that's not of the highest light and love, then no, thank you. Let's clear that. Let's remove that. You're not allowed here. And we're being specific with who we are chatting with. I go in depth about this in my psychic development course. Like, if you really want to access this and do it responsibly, I highly recommend my psychic development course. I do the full training on this. But you know, I'm watching this depiction of King George in this show, and I'm like, okay, in a different context, what he's experiencing could very much just like be his psychic gifts open. And like what my guides were saying as I'm watching this, I'm like, this is so interesting. They're like, this, like, and he even says, there's a line in the show where he says something like, I'm in between worlds and I don't know which is which. And I'm like, you know, what's interesting is, like, when I have tuned in, asked, like, get clear, like, what's my gift? One of my gifts is that that's like my gift. Like, that's what I'm here to share to people, that like I'm able to be in between worlds at the same time and not forget, and basically just like not have that veil there all the time. And a lot of times it's easier for people to like kind of be in one world and then transition in the 3D, and it's harder for them to like kind of hold both at the same time. Obviously depends on the person, but like, that's part of my gift, is like being able to be in multiple worlds at the same time and still stay grounded in it, you know? So I just think it's really interesting that, you know, we're watching this depiction of, like, essentially they're saying like he's crazy, his mental illness, there's something wrong with him, is how it's being perceived. And it's like, is there something wrong, or is this like, you know, someone is psychically, intuitively open, like open, energetically open, and not aware of what's going on. They don't know how to control it. And I also think this is really interesting with multiple personalities, where, you know, I've asked the guides about it. And one of the things that they were saying is, they kind of get the comparison of like, okay, Christina, when I go into my Akashic records and I tune into my different incarnations, I have different names in those different incarnations, and different personalities in each, and different life scenarios going on in each. And imagine if, as I'm anchored into this vessel, all of that awareness came into me at the same time and started switching off. So I just kind of started switching off into my, like, the different aspects of my soul expression, and it wasn't compartmentalized like we experience it here. And there's not a control to it. That's a way spiritually in which like multiple personalities could be perceived. I hope that's making sense, because here's the thing, like, you right now, you're experiencing, you know, whatever your name is, your current life circumstances, whatever, but you also are, your soul is being expressed in other realities where you have a different name, where you have different life circumstances, where different things are going on. And people have experienced spontaneously, like, people go to sleep sometimes and wake up in the other reality of them. Sometimes you go there in your dreams. So sometimes people have actually literally just like actually swapped. That can happen. I mean, there's also the walk-in experience, but, you know, kind of different. But imagine if right now, like, the other part of your soul just like came in with all of that knowledge and awareness about that other personality and those other life circumstances, and there wasn't like any control over it, and like this other personality is coming in. One way to look at it. And I think, you know, I kind of struggle with even the terms. Like, for me, it was really liberating when I had anxiety and depression. I was diagnosed with those things. It was actually really liberating for me to like just own, like, I had mental health issues. And I now just have like, it's like, was it an issue though? I think when I think about it for myself, you know, what was it an issue? And I think there's a lot of different personality disorders, different diagnoses. I was looking at some of the questions and I just felt like it was just really connected in, because some people are asking about just like the spirituality of certain things, the spirituality of mental illness, someone said. What about bipolar? What might that be? And I think when we look at a lot of these different things, it's like, a lot of things that were labeled issues or illness was just, we don't understand this. And this is not looking like what we are used to or what we know how to handle. So therefore it is an issue or an illness. Like, is it an issue or an illness though? Or is it just a different expression and we don't understand that? I think that's the thing of like, what do we push away as this is not correct. The body, the brain is not working correct because it's not what we know. We've got to be careful of that. Right. And I think when we start to explore a lot of these, I'll call them mental health issues, whatever, from a spiritual perspective, it is really powerful. I've done a podcast, I know at least one, if not multiple, on anxiety and depression specifically, and like really looking at, where I think a lot of mental health issues, it is looking at where is the veil really thin in this person's, and I've talked about this with ADHD too, like they're very energetically, spiritually, psychically open and aware. Where is this a soul calling to live more in alignment, where the depression, the anxiety can be, I'm out of alignment, I'm not living my authenticity, there is something incorrect vibrationally here, or it could be picking up on too much stimuli, things like that, with a lot of the anxiety, or having a lot of energy cords or attachments. That's a big one, having an energetic attachment. That's a huge one with different mental illnesses. So I definitely would recommend checking out those episodes on anxiety, depression, ADHD, things like that, because I take a much deeper dive into it. But yeah, bipolar. So what's interesting is there, and you can do this with anything, right? Like, so the energy of it is these really intense emotional swings. And a lot of this can be really connected, like energetically, vibrationally. If I'm looking at an energy body, we really would want to look at like the root chakra and the crown chakra. Like, are we connected to source? Are we connected to like fully connected with our higher purpose? And then also grounding. Like, grounding is huge. And for a lot of people, there's sort of like this, it's like dissociation, like a disconnection from their body. Like, people are not fully in their bodies, they're kind of popped out of their bodies. There can also be a resistance to emotions. And so we're really looking at like, what is this person, and like heart chakra, like things like straight up the chakras will tell you a lot about this, right? We want to look at groundedness. Is this person grounded, or there's kind of like disconnection, or kind of floating outside of their body? What is the relationship with emotions, and where have there been a lot of emotions? Oh, this is interesting. A lot of intense emotions that have been basically swept under the rug, that are just still stuck in the energy body from other lifetimes as well, like this one and other lifetimes. So then when something triggers that emotion, so say it's like sadness, what is, you're touching the top of the mountain. You're touching the tip of the iceberg, and they feel a little like something triggers a sadness, but then what's getting pressed on is the entire iceberg, because none of that's been cleared out. And so then they're going deep into all of the emotion, and there's still a lot of connection, like energetically. I'm just seeing a lot of energy cords to other experiences. Like, there needs to be a big energy clearing and a big grounding and a big being brought into the body, and clearing from those energies from other lifetimes as well, because that can lead to a lot of these like swings, and it's like almost like a disconnection between the chakras, for example, right? And there's almost like this healing of their relationship with emotions themselves, and a lot of these things are other incarnations, like, that are affected. Like, this is soul level stuff for a lot of people. Not always. Every single person is going to be different, I'll tell you that right now. Every single person is very different, but those are some things. What else with I think if someone's has bipolar, I would really work with an energy healer to get a lot of those chakras like put back into balance, because a lot of this is a reconnection, and a lot of it is like, where is the field too open? You know, I'll tell you, like, this is a way that, like, the way that I maintain, I guess, control with my channeling, with all of the like input I get. If I was just fully open on blast, like, and I wasn't really calibrating my field, I would not be okay. Like, it was 44 when I said I would be so overstimulated. I would not be able to differentiate things. Like, it would be way too much. I would not be okay. When I have the overstimulation, I could go into like a mental, emotional spiral and like fly off the handle, because there's just too much stimulation. So a lot of that, it can be kind of like, it's not a shutting off of the field. Like, you know, actually this came up the other day in a session. It's like not sealing the energy field, but like closing up the holes and the leaks and being very specific about what's allowed in and what's allowed out to like calm the system down. And so like not everything is on full blast. Like even the feeling of our emotions, you know, this empath piece is a big piece here, but a lot of this is energetic attachments and having a lot of energetic attachments and intentionally that are pulling us back into places or pulling us back into people, and feeling other people's stuff as well so intensely. And there's things we can do to kind of like dull it. I don't want to say dull it down, because I feel like that has like, but it is kind of like dulling it down. Like, look, I don't need my guides to be on volume 100. Like, y'all are on volume 15 and I can hear you just fine. And if you're on volume 100, I would be not okay. Like, because it would just be too much. So that's a really interesting thing. Like, there's a lot of emotional core to different people, and a lot of like being pulled into their energies as well. Yeah. Those are some things with bipolar. That's really fascinating. Anything else about that? Like, understanding, it's like, okay, I am hypersensitive. I'm hypersensitive. And so I have to learn to work with that. And so when we understand that, of like, I feel things really deeply, I like, I can walk into a room and if there's a Glade plug-in, I feel like I'm going to die. Like, my brain's going to explode. It's like with the bipolar piece, I'm understanding like they're just saying hypersensitive to frequency, to vibration. And that is not like, it's learning to work with this, learning to work with it and see, okay, well then how does my energy body get to be adjusted the same way? Like, if I'm an empath, like, how am I going to like work with that? I'm not going to like live my life thinking I can't do anything. I can't be around people because I'm an empath. It's like, okay, so this is where we're at. So then energetically, what can we do to adjust this? You know, and the reason I don't like the doling down term is because I don't believe in like turning things off. And I think, you know, I know a lot of the medications that I have quite a few very close friends who have been diagnosed with bipolar. And I've seen, you know, a lot of sometimes the medications just really like, I mean, you know, just like numb them out. And it's like, they're kind of like disconnected and like not present. And it's like, that's like too much turning down of the volume. So it's actually like learning to work with these emotions, and actually a lot of emotional release, like with a professional, with a practitioner in a healthy space to start to move that energy out will really like shift the ability to like work with that. It might not manifest as much as the bipolar. Like they're like showing me kind of like manic depressive buckets and like emotions that go with those. And it's like dumping out the buckets, because like your stress bucket might be different. So I think a great example, I'll say, like, I was just talking to somebody else about this. I was like, my friend was saying, because we both have had chronic illness. She's like, it just like sucks because I feel like, how come I can't work the same way other people do? And I'm like, it's not a comparison or a better than or worse than, or like there's something wrong with us. It's like, my stress bucket is just different. There's a lot of things that other people might be able to handle, but like my stress bucket already has a lot in it. And so something that might not be too much for someone else is too much for me, where it puts my body over the edge and my body can't keep up with it. It just is what it is. And so I know that about myself because my stress bucket is different. And similarly, other people, I'm sure there are certain things that I can do no problem. And I bet if a lot of people received a lot of the psychic input I receive on an everyday basis, that would be way too much for their stress bucket and might put them over the edge, and their body wouldn't be able to deal with all of that. So it's like just realizing all of these things that we're processing all the time, emotions, physiologically, and that's just a lot to be working with. And so just knowing your body and what's gonna work for you, and like the different levels of like, okay, well, what's going to help me in terms of how can I dump out what's in my stress bucket? And do I know what really adds a lot to it? So you can replace stress with, whatever it is. So yeah, a lot of like releasing that, what can kind of help to reset it, to start to figure out like, okay, what am I extra sensitive to? What does that feel like? How do I start to work with this? Things like that, So, when it comes to mental health issues, I really, really believe in a holistic approach. I think there's a lot that we can do with diet and supplements, obviously working with mental health professionals. And I think there's a lot we can do energetically. And I think just like looking at it from different angles can be really expansive for people. But I always think a really valuable question is like, if I decided that this wasn't something wrong with me, but rather indicating to me something that wants to be shifted or released or expanded or looked into, what else could I find here? The same way, like when I had my allergic reaction, right? It's not that there was something wrong with my body. Like my body was responding as it needed to respond. My body was responding in a healthy way to protect me from whatever I was just having that allergic reaction to. Like had I not had that allergic reaction, that would have been bad, because I probably would have kept taking that supplement, and then I wouldn't have realized what that was doing negatively to my body. So it wasn't that my body was wrong or bad or not working. It was like, that was what was supposed to happen, because it was giving me information that I got to look into to see, okay, that doesn't resonate for me anymore. Hopefully that makes sense. So I don't know, this kind of went all over the place, but I hope this was interesting and helpful. Things I'm thinking about, changes, shifts, diving deeper, thinking about things in new ways. And I feel really grateful that I live in a day and age where I can talk about this and I can explore this. And, my job, like, I'm not trying to like put my beliefs on anyone else. I feel like my beliefs are kind of like never really fixed anyway. I'm just always kind of living in transition with those, but it's really just more to bring different ideas forward for, channel that for myself too. And anyone listening of like, what about this though? And not for anyone to take it on, for it to need to be like the new information. It's not that. It's just like, well, let's just look at everything. And like, well, what if that? And like live in the exploration and live in the question, because that can unlock something, an insight for you individually that could be really helpful in your life, So it's just about being in the exploration, asking more questions, and seeing if we can just add more perspectives and more angles instead of just looking through one lens. So you don't have to throw out old perspectives to also invite in new ones. I think that's really liberating to live in. So let me know how this lands. If you enjoy this, please take a screenshot, share it to social media, tag me, tag at Christina the Channel podcast. We can repost you and say a big thank you. If you have a question or a topic for us to explore, I will channel about it on the pod. Go to christinathechannel.com/pod pod. christinathechannel.com/pod and submit it there. And then I can put it in my doc to start, to keep knocking out some of these great questions and topics. Thank you again so much for listening in. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will chat with you again next time.